Life After the Fight is a show that speaks to everyday issues pertaining to our mind, body, and soul. We will address topics ranging from mental health, self care, fatherhood, family, relationships, and more. Our goal is to encourage listeners to keep fighting through the obstacles, challenges, and struggles. The focal point is simple: seek a fresh perspective, become teachable, and improve your overall health and wellness. If you're craving more growth and development, this podcast is for you.
Hey, Ricky. Glad to be back. To our audience, hello to all of you guys who are listening. Um, ooh, that's my stomach just now. I guess I need to eat some. Ooh. Anyway, how things with you, man? Haven't talked to you in a minute.
Man, I'm just living, man. Just living carefully,
Okay,
living intentionally,
okay.
and living with more purpose.
Good, 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 good. Anything new that's been going
I wouldn't say new as far as something that I'm like. I'm every day is new.
on? Okay,
I'm learning more about myself.
okay,
Learning more about my kids, my two boys. Seeing them peruse their experiences through college and high school and stuff like that. So um, it's just amazing to kind of see the growth and development,
okay.
and then how they respond to the different obstacles and challenges that come their way. But other than that, man, I'm just glad to wake up this morning, man, and be able to be in this podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a good place. Well, I'll tell you what I did. I did something recently that was I wouldn't say it's a bucket list thing, but it is something I never experienced before. My
Hmm.
son talked me into going rock wall climbing.
Oh wow!
And I will say that's not for the faint of heart.
Yes,
Literally,
yes.
if you've got a weak heart out there and you listening, uh, do some work out for a couple months or maybe a year for some of you before you try doing something like this because not only is it not for the faint of heart, you got to be in pretty good shape to do
Definitely.
this, and it requires a little bit of knowledge of rappelling down the wall, which was interesting because we actually had to take a class to do this particular activity.
Yes.
I thought rock wall climbing, well, this particular rock wall climbing was nothing like what I envisioned. I envisioned us going there, maybe putting on some whatever kind of shoes they got,
Definitely.
putting a little
Hmm.
chalk or powder on our hands, and then just starting to grab rocks and climb up the wall. But that was not it.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Uh,
what you anticipated.
what this required was us learning how to tie knots and make sure that safety was always a paramount key before climbing up this or rather a high wall, which was probably 100, maybe 150 feet. And
That's tall.
while he climbed, I had to be the one down below to make sure that I either gave or pulled on the rope so that he was safe, and then he had to do the same for me at the same time. And it takes quite a bit of strength to climb up that
I
wall.
can
You
imagine.
don't realize it. It looks like fun and games until you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
So it was
Well, let me ask you this: what was
yeah.
the recovery time after that, as far as because I'm sure you were sore.
I was sore, but ironically, wasn't sore Sunday that day when I did it.
Mhm.
I was more sore the next morning when I went for my run and I felt it in my back because
Oh yes, yes.
when you climbing a wall,
Yeah.
you literally feel like you Spider Man because you're
Hmm.
stretching your body all kinds of ways so that you can get up the side of that wall, which is kind of interesting because uh, silly enough, I start thinking about wow, maybe roaches are some strong creatures to be able to climb up walls the way they do. I won't look at an insect the same way again. I'll put it that way.
Hey, you're a better man than me, man.
It's definitely a thing. So, but anyway, we'll get right into the show tonight because I think that this topic is going to be major importance to a lot of people. And the reason I think it's going to be important is because I don't think it's something that most people think about. And that is, when does education stop and indoctrination begin? Now, before we even get into the discussion of it, I wanted to pull out the old trusty Webster's short version of education. And education is the act or process of acquiring knowledge. I'll say that again. Education is the act or process of acquiring knowledge. Conversely, indoctrination is the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically and unwavering. Again, indoctrination is the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically and unwavering. Now, the reason I chose this is because with all the unrest that we see in the world right now, whether you're looking at Russia and Ukraine, or I would say more aggressively and more present time, conflict in the Middle East between Hamas, Israel, and the Palestinian people being caught in the middle. Now, I have friends on both sides of the equation, but particularly one who happens to be a person who is Jewish. And we were having this conversation the other day. And for the audience, I don't care what religion you are. Period. I have no skin in the game as to whether you're Jewish, Islamic, Christian, or whatever. Just thinking about this from the perspective of everyone thinks they're right in whatever their belief system is. And that's fine if you want to go with that. But the reason that I brought this up to the friend I was talking to is because when we go to school, when we go to our various churches, synagogues, or temples, and even our parents, we acquire knowledge, whether it's knowledge of how to pick up trash, how to make up your bed, or you go to school and someone teaches you math. That's education. Indoctrination creeps in when the people who are teaching you knowledge decide, typically with your consent, that not only are they going to teach you this knowledge, but they're going to make you believe it in the exact same way that they believe it. Otherwise, you are an enemy to them. And so that's why the conversation came about. When does education stop? Because I believe that everyone should be able to be educated on things and have critical self thinking about any particular subject matter that arises. However, those same people, if not careful, can allow themselves to be placed in indoctrination, i.e., World War II, when Hitler took power of Germany. Not only were the people not only were the people educated, but they were also indoctrinated in a belief system that was against a religion that they, in my opinion, did not understand. So I wanted to see, Ricky, what do you think about education, and when does it teeter into or infiltrate into a place of indoctrination where people no longer are thinking for themselves, but are gravitating, attaching themselves to, or let's just say relinquishing their own critical thought process to just be spoon fed whatever information it is based upon the individuals who may seem to have superiority over them.
That's a good topic, and I think that before I even respond to that, so many of us, and I'm guilty of it, we have a lot of us have been raised think in a certain way.
Hmm.
And when you are a child growing up in your household, you're kind of bound, if you would, to whatever's being taught, or being shared with you by your parents. And then as you become older, uh, you're also taught to not challenge what
Right.
you're taught. And I know for me, that was the whole experience I had growing up from birth to 17 years old. I was educated on a particular religious belief, and the indoctrination of that was, this is what it is, and there is no other. And so for me at that age, I didn't really have a fight or battle in that,
Hmm.
because I was born and raised, like, I didn't know
Right.
any
So you
better.
couldn't
I
question
couldn't question
authority.
it. I could not question it. And
Gotcha.
so I spent the first 17 years of my life being taught, educated on something that, it was an indoctrination point blank, because it was one of those things where if I challenge or ask questions, I'm either insulting you, the person who's teaching me,
Right.
or I'm questioning you as a person. So now it's personal.
Which pushes you in a position of repercussions and consequences.
Exactly. So I was led to say less
Okay.
and just kind of keep my head down, if you would. But then as I got older, into my teenage years, closer to my young adulthood, I started to question and I started to, ask questions, and it became real intense until I went to college and I was able to finally be able to have a clear head and clear mind. And I don't want to get off topic as far as what you're
No, you
saying.
actually you're
Yeah,
on topic with
yeah,
that because um, I want you to I want you to finish your thought, but that's one of the things that people are criticizing colleges today,
yeah,
particularly people who are on the conservative side, saying there's too much taught in liberalism in college, and that
yes,
the I guess when people make that complaint, it's still, in my opinion, that they want to indoctrinate you into their
into their
side.
side, yeah,
And that's why they're making a complaint because they want to get you to think a certain way.
a certain way.
So you're thoroughly
So,
on track.
so let me just say this: when I got to college, I was able to be exposed to the culture of mankind, and also the culture of my ethnicity.
Okay.
And so when I was exposed to that, I started to just ask more questions to, professors, etc. And then I then began to try to align that with what I was taught growing up,
Gotcha.
and a lot of things didn't make sense.
Right.
And so as I started to study more in college and started asking more questions, I realized I actually have the potential and the ability to educate myself by reading and cross referencing and really trying to get an understanding from that perspective. Not that I was going to basically say, okay, whatever I read, that's it, but to get more information so I can basically look at what was being fed to me growing up.
So you can make an intelligent
Exactly,
decision.
make intelligence. So as I started to really study more, I'm like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And there was holes in what was being told to me. And so once I started getting a better understanding, I started to really digest better the information.
Okay.
Still reserved, because I was hurt in the process of growing up with the information that was
I
given
like
to
if you
me.
say reserve, but I'm gonna replace that with something. You tell me if this is along the lines or if it's not.
Okay.
Still questioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
But that
why is this
yes. But that's why I was
perspective being taught to me when I have thoughts on this that I
yes.
like to
Well,
express?
well, let me say this to you. You already know that when you're young, your mind is impressionable.
Of course.
So you are vulnerable to be swayed whichever way, because you don't really have the backbone and the experience and knowledge to either challenge
Of
what's
course.
being told or to defend what's being said. So as a young, boy growing up, I was just like, well, this is how I was raised. This is what it is. And then I started getting older, and I just started to, for myself,
Right.
ask questions. I'm like,
Right.
this doesn't make sense because I was very inquisitive, very intuitive. And
2 and 2 kept being 7. And
yes,
you're like, why is
yeah,
that?
that doesn't make any sense. And so when I started to ask certain questions, it was always a defensive response.
Right.
So that's where the doctrination came from. So now I'm insulting the person who's supposedly teaching and educating me. And then I had to question, well, how do you know that what you're feeding me is actually it? Or and then I later realized my father went through the same situation. He was born and raised into it. So it was one of those things where that's all he knew.
Well, I find it kind of funny, like you said about your father, and I'm sure my father and other people's,
Yes.
maybe even audience members' fathers who are listening to this right now. Isn't it funny that you're taught that you were given free will, but the people teaching you to have free will are giving you directives?
I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. That's
You
such a
know,
contradiction.
it is a huge
It's a
contradiction.
contradiction for real.
Uh, one of the things that I've had conversations, and I continually expand my thoughts in my mind. You know, not that I am ever going to be as intelligent or smart as my creator.
Hmm.
However, I ask certain things of people that I just, not just friends, but people I come across. Uh, I don't get into debates with people because I just simply ask questions so they can substantiate their viewpoint.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I realized, and I share this with people, and I think I may have even shared it with you once or twice. Books, particularly books of history, are written by the winners.
Yes. Yes.
Losers don't write their story
No, they don't.
because no one is going to allow them to
To
do
do that.
so.
Exactly.
So, even in all of our reading and educating ourselves, something inside of you has to, for me, it's God, has to connect with your creator or what you think is the originating factor of who you are. Because so much right and wrong has been discussed with people that truth a lot of times takes a back seat.
Takes a back seat.
And a friend,
Yes.
I won't say a friend, but associate said, well, what I'm telling you from my perspective is the truth. And I said, but again, you just said the key word, your
Your perspective.
perspective.
Your perspective.
And the more you're trying to talk to me is that you're not trying to educate me now, you're trying to indoctrinate me with your truth.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the reason I thought that I wanted to bring this topic up for a lot of people because a lot of people, in my opinion, and this has just come through, and I'll be honest, through meditation and consideration and prayer and a lot of things, is the fact that the lives we live are based upon so much more than just not just our experiences and observations, but the actual belief systems that we attach ourselves to.
Yeah.
Now, I don't care who you are, you believe something, even if you think you believe nothing. There is some underlying belief system that you have. That's when I talk with people who are agnostic or atheists or have certain religious beliefs,
Hmm.
even a person who doesn't have a religious belief believes something. They
Believe
believe
something.
in gravity,
Yeah.
regardless of whether or not they talk about it, because they are a victim of
Of
it.
it. Yeah. That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Just because you don't believe in something doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
So you have to be open minded enough to expand your mind and horizons to try and at least, even if you don't accept, try to at least scratch the surface of understanding of where that came from and what that is.
Hmm.
Because there's so many stories. I'll tell you something that with this past week that I learned that would and I mean I'm very strong in what I believe, so regardless of what is, I'm sticking with what I believe. But I was listening to this program and I did some of my own research. Now, you've heard of something called hermaphrodites.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Well, in present time, it's a word called intersex. And what intersex is that a person can have both sexes.
Both sexes, yeah.
Now, what I did not know, because I
Mhm.
decided to do my own research on
Definitely.
it, was that if you have uh, male testes and you have female ovaries, and on the very, very, very rare occasion, because there are intersex people who have both,
Definitely.
but the very, very, very almost extreme condition is that they also have a uterus. Did you know that an individual scientifically could literally impregnate themselves?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Has
I
it
didn't.
been,
I didn't know
has it
that.
been done?
It not to anyone's knowledge.
But the possibility
The
is
possibility
there
is
just
there,
based on the evidence
just based on
of,
the
of both
evidence
organs.
of both organs. Now, when I saw that, I
Wow.
went, "Wow!"
Mm.
Now, if someone wanted to take that and use it against religion, they could say, "Oh, well, then this could
Mm.
explain the Immaculate Conception of the Catholics."
Mhm.
I said, "Interesting.
Mm.
It could, but if you're rooted in your belief in that, then it means nothing to you." But that's a story that exists.
Wow. Well, you know what I've learned. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up. What I've discovered is that man, as we know it to be, is very keen on trying to encourage different truths.
Right.
And so, based on what your truth is, can be something different than his truth, and vice versa.
Right.
And the arguments are based on small bit of information,
Nuances.
nuances that, like you just shared, they will take it and they will formulate a whole entire diaspora. And what's interesting about it is that they will stick to that and create a movement.
Mhm.
And then now the movement has its own legs and is able to move. And now you are grounded in what you believe based on one little nuance of information, totally negating the foundation, totally negating the possibility and the reason as to why that is. Now, you and I both know why that is, as far as having the ability to have a uterus, ovaries, and testicles. We already know why that is. But to someone who's not grounded in understanding our creator and how, we are actually what we're born into, that of course can be something that no one will be able to understand. They'll just focus on what it is. And that's their truth. Based on what they see, that's exactly what it is. Now I want to make a comment about something said earlier about the the studying.
Mhm.
You did something and you said something that a lot of people will challenge, but won't necessarily go the extra step to get an understanding. You said, I'm grounded in my truth, and that's that. But when I was looking at this information, I decided to do my own research. You were open, which a lot of people aren't.
No.
You were open to see something that not only sparked your interest, not only kind of went against what you believe, but you did not shut down, get an understanding, and find out exactly, okay, well, let me just open this up and see what this is. And which you discovered, you had no idea
No.
what you were going to get out of it. But for you to say, did you know? Because you did the research and you understood this is a possibility. And then what did I do? I can't say, wait, has it been done? Not to my common knowledge. So just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean that there isn't any possibilities. I think what's happening in this world today, we want to focus on just possibilities without getting a full understanding of the concept and the background of that information. And when we do that, we'll have more open-ended conversations where we won't have to be so confrontational and trying to prove each other. We'll be like, listen, let's just have a decent conversation. Let's get this information. Let's talk about it and see if we can learn something new than what we already know.
And see, and that's why I really, really wanted to talk about this tonight, today,
Yes.
wherever you are listening. The education versus indoctrination, because I don't know if you saw where in the news recently, two things occurred. A man stabbed a 6-year-old boy to death because he was Palestinian.
Palestinian, yeah. That was
And he
his
did
mother.
that, and,
Mhm.
and his mother, and he
Mhm.
did that. But the little 6-year-old boy, innocent soul, I couldn't fathom why. I mean, I understand, adults sometimes.
Hate.
Not that I condone
No.
but just to take an innocent child. And I know people would debate me on, well, how innocent was the child? Well, you don't know and I don't know, so let's not ponder that.
We're talking about a child,
But
though.
the thing that I thought was interesting was this man committed this heinous act based upon information that I'm sure he received secondhand without doing research himself.
That's it.
Then I fast forward to this gentleman who shot up all those people in Maine.
Maine. Yeah.
Now, we don't know a rhyme or reason as to why he did it, what was the purpose for him doing the situation, but it made me think of something that I thought was very paramount to education and indoctrination, and that is this. How do we go from bad, thinking that, and what I mean by bad is that we competitively run a rat's race, to worse, where we're isolating ourselves like a hamster on a wheel?
Yes. Yeah.
And I thought about those two things because at least when people thought they were in a rat race, there was enough distraction for them not to, I call it, get into the enemy of their own mind to make them act out in the way they do. But now that because of the pandemic and everything, people have been isolated. So now they're like a hamster running on a wheel. And we all know that when you get caught up in your own thoughts without anyone else to answer any of your questions
Come on
that you
now.
have,
Come on.
you formulate your own opinion,
That's
and
it.
then you do what? Most of us are sane enough to not act it out, but you have some people who I would say cross that line, become psychotic with it, and act out and hurt people for no apparent reason
No
to the
apparent
rest of
reason.
us because we don't know the monologue going on inside of their heads.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's why I thought it was important to talk about this. And if you who are listening out there, if the education has gotten to a place where you got friends and people trying to make you believe or think something that you're uncomfortable with,
Yes.
I'm here to tell you, be cool in your uncomfortableness of figuring out for yourself and not having other people tell you things that you know not to be true. And also, if someone's trying to tell you something that's going to make you go out and hurt other people, ask yourself the question of this. Those same people could be thinking the same thing about you. Would you want them to come and hurt you, shoot you, kill you because of how you believe? So have an open mind to things and not be so closed minded that you go, oh, well, that group of people is, this is a stereotype and I'm going to believe that about all of them.
Yes.
No. When you
Yes.
run into something or someone you don't understand, I'm not telling you to ever judge,
Exactly.
but figure out that situation
Exactly.
before you make any action.
Yes. Well, in closing, because we're pretty much almost out of time, um, I second that motion, and I just want to share this sentiment that we have to do more investigation into whatever we're seeking an understanding for, because there's so many different areas of truth as well as areas of things that are not true. And so, for anybody out there who really wants to be settled in an understanding, you got to do your due diligence. You have to be able to do your research, and you got to ask the right questions. And whatever you are seeking, you can get what you're looking for, but you got to put the work in. And as far as reacting off of impulse and emotion and things of that nature, um, it broke my heart when I saw that about the 6-year-old man. But at the same time, I know for a fact that there's so many people that are driven and motivated by hate.
Yeah.
and they're not happy in their lives. And so that's pretty much what we're seeing. But I just say, look, educate yourself, ask the right questions, and try not to challenge something without having foundation in the background of what it is that you're seeking or challenging.
And I'll top it off with saying we all have blind spots,
Yes.
and other people have blind spots for us. And I'll leave you with this: every particular group, race, ethnicity, club, group, all have stereotypes that are attached to them. I remember someone saying to me recently, it was a story, and again, it's just a story about how or where would you place this particular person in a stereotype, in a stereotypical group. And this is what was given to me. She's black, a professor, French, lesbian, atheist. That's about 6 to 7 different categories that you could put her into different stereotypes. It will be impossible for you to do because she has those many different identities. Investigate, educate yourself on the simple premise of who that person is before you decide to put them into a stereotypical group.
I agree.
Because not all Asians are great at math, not all Black people have rhythm, and not all white people have great credit. Okay?
There you go.
We're all individuals.
There you go.
We'll leave you with that.
Life after the fight. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. That was a good one, man.
Take care, everyone.
All right.